time it'll go live. Now it says we're live. Okay. But we always let it warm up. Now, the thumbnail is fantastic, right? There's Timmy Pats. But you know what I really wanted to do for our cover up today?
Uh-huh.
I wanted to do this because we're back. You know, it's like we're back.
Yes.
We're back. And from us to you, nothing but love. Always love. Okay, let's wrap up this thing and I should say get it going. I need more coffee. All right, how about this? Here we go in 3, 2, 1. Well, that just happened. Week 1 in the National Football League is wrapped up and it's time for week 2. But who are the hot waiver wire ads that you need for your fantasy team? That and more. In the Waiver Wire Show, we are back. It is the Audible, Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom. But as we do each and every week with Dr. Jene Bramel, we check in on the injured quarterback situations, and that is Ryan Fitzpatrick. So as we get to our show, a new little feature for y'all, because Dr. Jene, you're here, kind of. So take it away.
Ryan Fitzpatrick hurt his right hip in this week's game. It's been called a subluxation, which means the hip partially comes out of place. It's a situation where lots of things can happen, from a fracture within the hip joint to some labral and cartilage damage in the hips. What we're hearing is that it's going to be a 6 to 8 week injury minimum. Fitzpatrick is seeing some additional specialists. It's something that could still take a little bit longer. Surgery is not entirely off the table yet, but it looks like week 7 is going to be the absolute earliest that he'll be back. Expect him to be put on injured reserve soon, and it's going to be mid-season at the earliest before we see Fitzpatrick.
Okay, before we see Fitzpatrick. There you go. How'd you like that, Bloom? Huh?
It's great. We just need to make his mouth move. South Park.
I know, a little South Park. Taco. All right. Well, Taylor Heinicke is not at the top of your list. As we go through the upgrades, downgrades, waiver wire report, and hell, Bloom, we could just talk about them all. There's 4 quarterbacks on your upgrade list. Jameis Winston, though, sitting at the top at 10 to 20%. And then there is Heinicke in the next group, along with Tyrod Taylor and Teddy Bridgewater at 3 to 5%.
Where the waiver wire becomes more interesting with quarterback is your 2 quarterback superflex leagues. Cease. I don't even know that you're rushing. Maybe you're rushing to pick up Jameis Winston, depending on your scoring format. But Heinicke and Taylor and Bridgewater, these are players that are much more interesting in a 2 quarterback superflex format. And really, Heinicke's the one that's going to be on the waiver wire. And the question might be how much to bid. And in a superflex half a season from Heinicke, the main thing is we believe Heinicke's going to be good. And this also ripples out to all of your Washington pieces. This is not a steep drop-off. See, if we were to rank the drop-off level from backup, started a backup quarterback, Washington would have been in the bottom 5, right?
He could have easily been their starter at the beginning of the year. And this doesn't mean Taylor Heinicke's the greatest or some revelation. We've had people say, why is Taylor Heinicke? Look at the weapons around him, right? And look at the way that he plays. So, yeah, it's not that much of a drop-off.
No. So let that, when you're thinking about Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson and so on. And if we just look at week 1, the offense came alive when Heinicke came in. So just based on week 1, Heinicke could be even an improvement. You could see him on Thursday night. But otherwise, Winston, see, this is a moment for us to say, we don't jock Sean Payton that often as somebody who gets the most out of his quarterbacks, right? But you can really see that, and the Saints have executed something. The Saints cease ahead of the curve in the way that we wish the Steelers would have been, knowing that their franchise quarterback is going to go into that sunset sooner or later, because Winston was very well prepared and the game plan suited his strengths, even though they've got nothing at wide receiver and tight end right now. So this was a very impressive performance for Winston in your 6 touchdown point leagues. Jumble the words there. In your long touchdown bonuses, 300-yard bonuses, because Winston only threw the ball 20 times. It was that kind of game. So this could be very fun for the Saints. He said he did it for the city. You love that. See, so you can talk about Teddy, but Teddy looks good. Speaking about a team rallying around a quarterback.
Right.
This is great. And Teddy is saying he feels as good as he has. He was hurt last year for the second half of the year when he dropped off. Feels like he's totally back from that knee. Certainly even without Judy, he still has some tremendous weapons, as we had Tim Patrick there on the opening thumbnail. And Terod, it's nice for him to have another moment. This is a guy caught in quarterback purgatory where he hasn't really had that chance, except outside of Buffalo, to have a team. So this was that ice cream day for them, for Houston, as they had to get their participation trophy. But again, 2 quarterbacks, super flex leagues. This is where quarterback is interesting on the waiver wire.
It's interesting on the waiver wire when we get to the running back position. But before we jump into who to add at running back, Dr. Jene Bramel joins us again via video conference. I don't know. But either way, we got
Beam
Dr. Jene talking about running backs. Here we go.
Major injury at the running back spot this week is to Raheem Mostert, who'd been having some knee soreness throughout camp. Didn't look like there was one specific injury event during the game and the few touches that he had on Sunday. The knee injury sounds like it's going to be some sort of cartilage situation. It's being described as chipped cartilage, which could be anything from a meniscus fragment that needs to be removed to something a little bit more significant. The Niners were oddly specific in calling it 8 weeks as far as recovery timetable goes. Mostert's going to be on injured reserve. This could be something that could be a 4 to 6 week situation if it is as simple during the arthroscopic surgery as if having a small fragment removed and then a quick healing process. But the term cartilage being used there means it could be a little bit longer situation. It might be something that could affect Mostert's career over the long term. So minimum 3 weeks on injured reserve could easily become a 4 to 6 week situation. And it may be something until late in the season until we see Mostert back. So still some things to come here. We'll know more after Mostert's surgery. Rashad Penny made it only a couple of snaps in Seattle's game before the calf strain that he'd been dealing with toward the end of camp reared up on him again and ended his day. The Seahawks are likely to put him on injured reserve. It's being called a multiple week situation. He won't be available for week 2. We're still waiting for LaMichael Pirine to come back from the Jets in his foot injury. Was able to fully practice last Friday before the game, but isn't quite ready to recover just yet. See if he's able to make it back for week 2.
That is Dr. Jene Bramel talking about those injured running backs. And Bloom, let's give Elijah Mitchell his own section here, because when the 49ers drafted him, it's like, great, well, what did he do with Trey Sermon? More on that in just a bit. But Mitchell taken off and certainly high on the fab money this week.
Cease, can we just step back and talk about the waiver? It is the first waiver wire show of the year. I mean, quarterbacks, okay, now we're to the real part of the waiver wire show that matters to everybody. And I just want to hit on a few things, our starting points, our starting considerations when we are making our waiver claims every week, okay? First of all, as I like to say often throughout the year, your mileage may vary. My numbers are mainly for you to compare priority within a position or across positions. So I may assign a number, but you know how the people in your league bid. You know how conservative they are or how aggressive they are about bidding versus saving money. And you also know how thin or fat your waiver wire is to know if it pays off to save the money. So always adjust. These are really just ranking players against each other for waiver wire priority. Okay, 2 things to keep in mind. This is all relevant to Elijah Mitchell, Cease, I promise. I'm not going to go on forever without making it about Elijah Mitchell. Number 1, the earlier you pick up someone in the waiver wire in the season, the more they're going to help you, right? Someone you pick up in week 2, week 3, week 4 is going to have more opportunity to help you than someone you pick up in week 10. So having that hammer at the end of the year isn't always the best thing. Number 2, and this one's important. Really, this is going to be, I'm going to add a third. But number 2, only a few players on the waiver wire each year hit. All right? See, it's like a scratch-off lottery ticket, right? I mean, 3, 4 maybe true difference makers at most in a season off of the waiver.
Yeah,
wire.
when you're talking about the guys that give you the season long, your James Robinson and stuff like that, that's because it's windows. Everyone else is windows. We're capturing windows here. Like, I don't know how long this window is. With Elijah Mitchell, gives you an opportunity to get a longer and larger window.
Yes. And if we're talking specifically about Mitchell, you can see within his range of outcomes being a difference maker. But the important thing to keep in mind here is that there's only a few difference makers on the waiver wire every year. So really, when you're spending your waiver wire bucks, unless it's to stop the bleeding, like put a tourniquet on something in your lineup, you're trying to get one of those 2 or 3 difference makers. It's a bet, Cease. It's a prop bet, right? I mean, don't think of it as purchasing a player to use. Think of it as what do you think the chances that this guy, with his confluence of opportunity, what we know about him so far this year and situation, Does he have a chance to be a difference maker? Okay. I'm going to add a third thing here. Week 2 is probably the most likely week that you're going to find one of those difference makers, right? It's the big reveal week. It's if you're quicker to adjust, like James Robinson last year. If you said, oh man, this is it, everything's set up, this is real, and you went 80 or 90% of your budget, if you took down James Robinson, because week 2 is when we have the least information to understand what just happened in the week before. So we're all still in the lurch, and sometimes it's just seeing what other people can't see, seeing it clearly. So Elijah Mitchell checks all these boxes, right? You love the situation, got opportunity last week and nailed it, and now Mostert's out for who knows how long. Listen to Dr. Gene. Why would you not step up to the plate and swing, Cease? Right? I say 25 to 50%. 25 to 50% in week 1 is like 50+% rest of the year. Right? If you're spending, I'm just go strong to the hole for Elijah Mitchell. And I understand, hey, if Trey Sermon gets dropped, go strong to the hole for Trey Sermon. And spoiler alert, Jermichael Hasty, he's more like a couple of units, like 1 or 3 to 5%, because it just doesn't look like he's going to get the big opportunity. Although, man, these running backs can fall off. So just having any San Francisco running back, having a piece of this situation is valuable. But right now, Elijah Mitchell has the momentum. Sermon also could take this over. This could flip at any second. You're buying the situation, Cease. You're buying the San Francisco running back situation. If he's on the roster, I want him. If he's on the roster and had touches last week and looked good, I especially want him.
And knowing Kyle Shanahan, they won't go away from a guy unless they're given reasons to. Fumbles, ineffectiveness, stuff like that. So with Mitchell, how long could it last? It's a legitimate question. But how long it could last is 16 more games.
Right.
So that's also a possibility. Now we get to the Baltimore Ravens situation. Latavius Murray and Tyson Williams, both of them right there. And you saw with Murray, guy barely shows up, and they're trusting him to do things. Good runner, good receiver out of the backfield, and I think one of the last Texas First Nation players out there. But 20 to 40% for Murray, 15 to 30% for Tyson Williams, as we saw the Ravens in a barn burner last night.
Yeah, it was a Roomba burner. By the way, Max Fritch in the chat room says Jeff Wilson IR stash. Yes, get a piece of that situation. Get a piece of that situation, folks. Come to the chat room, participate. We love seeing you all. The Ravens running backs, Cecil, I want to hear what you have to say on this. I went back and forth. I mean, look, the point is, I would rather have Elijah Mitchell than either Ravens running back. But if one of those two is out there, then you're getting
It's Latavius. It's Latavius. Yep.
It is Latavius. And look, Williams has more juice than Latavius. It's obvious. All right. But you see down the stretch, who do they trust? Who you trust? And let's put Latavius Murray, maybe not quite at, but Mark Ingram a few years ago level. He's just going to get more opportunities, goal line opportunities because of that trust. Williams might have more big plays. Williams might be a more exciting running back to watch and maybe have a higher ceiling in terms of long touchdown capabilities like we saw last week. You love the acceleration and the burst and the toughness there. A rugged back too. So, and then Matt Waldman favorite, let's not forget. So they're the number 2 and 3 priority. The only question is which one is 2 and which one is 3. Probably is Murray because of the trust. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Williams. I'm happy to have either of them.
I'm happy to move to the next group of running backs, which includes Nyheim Hines at 10 to 20%, Devin Singletary at 10 to 20%. And, well, in my heart, Bloom, I might even bump him up just a little bit more.
Sure. Well, over one of the Ravens backs?
No.
Well, it's tough. Look, Singletary is a really good take-a-stand player.
And they've never really liked him. And I don't know why. I have no idea why that they ignore the run unless they have to run, which is fine. That's their philosophy. Hell, it's worked for him. But Bloom, like, Singletary's a good back. Yeah. And they treat him like he's some slappy.
Yeah, and we saw at the end of 2019 as they were using him more as a lead back, he was coming on, and he was one of the bright spots in the offense. And see, there's a larger thing here. And Zach Moss, healthy scratch, I don't know what to say about that. Okay, but it speaks volumes. And what Singletary did in the fourth quarter with his opportunity speaks volumes. This team this is a separate Thursday night kind of topic, Cease. Eric Stoner, of course, is always close when I'm thinking about these things. And we have a conversation about the Buffalo has to run the ball at some point, right? I mean, you can't be predictable in the NFL. You can't just run the ball 15 times a game and expect that to not catch up with you. Yeah?
You can't do what you did last year because the league's figured that out.
Right. Exactly. So you have to think there's going to be more investment in the running game, and that should be Singletary after he was the bright spot. Matt Breida barely saw the field. Moss, I don't know. I mean, this could be a team that looks to trade for a running back. I don't know, but I do think that they can't just expect this to work. This implicates Josh Allen, probably not Stephon Diggs. You saw Diggs and Beasley, particularly because of the matchup, get the volume. Gabriel Davis, Emmanuel Sanders, maybe we are less excited about if this team has that adjustment. But I do think that Singletary is a player you can take a stand on this week, still probably pretty cheaply. And then you have Nyheim Hines. It's a committee. That's not to take anything away from Jonathan Taylor. They're using him in the passing game. He got a red zone reception. He still was worth like 19 points, 18 points in a PPR league. But he's not going to be a runaway Derrick Henry kind of factor in this backfield because the Colts understand what they have in Nyheim Hines, a really dynamic player. And in PPR leagues, he's going to be flex worthy. We had that tier of backsies, James White, Giovanni Bernard, J.D. McKissick, Hines. Sure looks like Hines and White are the guys you wanted out of that group. Bernard, we'll see. McKissick, we'll see. Hines has some lasting value, not just a best ball play now and in PPR leagues. And it depends on what you want. Adjust for your league. In a very deep league, Nyheim Hines might have more value than in a shallow league where you only have 5 bench spots. So you understand your league better than I do. Hines might be worth more or less depending on how your league works.
Can we just put Nyheim Hines on the Bills?
Right?
Sure. Imagine that.
He like a satellite back. I mean, bring back the good old satellite backsies.
Right. Where are they at? Where are you at? And how about this with the next section? Tony Jones leading the way at 5 to 10%. Samaje Perine in there as well. Larry Roundtree also 5 to 10%. As this section features some nice young running backs.
Yeah. You got to be thorough. You want to churn the end of your bench to make sure you have players that have some chance of gaining value. Tony Jones has solid value. Still, I don't know that he's going to get the kind of goal line looks that Latavius Murray got. Not that he got that many. He's not quite in the Latavius Murray role. He does have the big Alvin Kamara injury upside. The Saints team looks good, but this was an ideal game script for him. And it just means that he's an injury upside player just like Samaje Perine. And Samaje Perine, maybe some questions about whether he was truly the backup. He was the only one to get snaps other than Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon looked good. The Bengals rightly rode Joe Mixon. You see Bengals win week one of the more of the feel-good wins,
Yeah, for sure. And with Mixon, you're just like, okay, where's my expiration date?
every week, yeah. So
hey, they used him. They gave him 35 touches.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Enter Perine.
Yeah.
And then Larry Roundtree, and he's ahead of Justin Jackson. Joshua Kelly was a healthy scratch. You have Austin Eckler. There's a riddle here, Cease, about Austin Eckler. Was it more important that he got the goal line touch and the touchdown, or more important that he didn't get a target? Does it have anything to do with the hamstring? But you know that the injury seal has been maybe not broken, Cease, but like when you accidentally pull it up a little bit and it doesn't quite get all the way through, with Eckler, it wouldn't be shocking. You remember he missed 6 games with a hamstring last year. It wouldn't be shocking if it's not the last we hear of hamstrings. Enter Larry Roundtree and the Chargers offense, by the way. I just want to take a moment out to say Justin Herbert, again, the Chargers and what the future holds with this team with Brandon Staley. This is great, man. I'm glad that the Chargers fans have something to look forward to. Again, I'm thinking of Eric Stoner. Already better than Phillip Rivers. I mean, right? Already better than Phillip Rivers?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, a near Hall of Fame quarterback, and he already can do more than Rivers could do.
Hall of Very Good. How about that? Let's get on to the next one. And there's part of my brain, Bloom. There's a large portion that is not yet awake this morning. But there's also part of my brain that's like, I wonder why Kenneth Gainwell wasn't higher. 3 to 5% for him. Jermichael Hasty, we talked about. Carlos Hyde there as well. Mark Ingram, 3 to 5%. Hell, let's throw in Cordero because he's a 1%er.
Sure.
But yeah, I think Gainwell is kind of a jumping off point in this section because it's like, all right, we saw maybe it's at 3 to 6%. Can I beg for a little bit more?
Yeah, I think the question is, if Miles Sanders were to go down, and maybe Gainwell, so like in any given week, you might want to play Gainwell over Jones, Perine, and Roundtree if you have to play one of them. He got a touchdown last week. He probably will get as many snaps as those guys, and he's a dynamic player. Eagles offense looking good. How much of that was Atlanta's defense? So
all of it.
Yeah, right. So he belongs in that tier. The question is, if Sanders were to go down, like if Mixon goes down, it's Pirine. Roundtree would lead a productive committee for sure. So maybe I'm already talking out both sides of my mouth here. Tony Jones probably wouldn't get the work in the passing game. That'd be Ty Montgomery. So yeah, Gainwell belongs in that next group. Then there's Hasty, and again, that's that scratch-off lottery ticket for the San Francisco backfield. But injuries happen so fast. Look at Baltimore. Injuries happen so fast that, we say it. We don't have to say it this year. We didn't even have a chance to say it. That zeroist string running backs matter in fantasy football because Latavius Murray did it in week 1. So San Francisco, again, anybody on the roster, Jeff Wilson, Carlos Hyde, and James Robinson did get about twice as many snaps if there's rational coaching. So we got a reveal on Urban Meyer. No, there's not rational coaching. No. See, USC, did you feel it in the football hive mind when USC's job opened up? Everyone said, oh, Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer thought that.
Yeah. Bobby Petrino, right? Nick Saban. I mean, we think of the coaches that leave the NFL from college stardom back to college with their tail between their legs, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're on that path. Anyway, that ties into Mark Ingram and why we're not that excited about Mark Ingram. So Carlos Hyde is more of an injury upside play is what I'm saying. It's not like the Jags are going to give many game scripts where they can feed the running backs. And then there's Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram got 26 carries. I think he hadn't had that many carries since 2014, Cease. Turning back the clock. It still wasn't very efficient. Did get a touchdown. Every running back got a touchdown for the Texans. Surprise, surprise. Again, is it the Texans? Is there something there? It's probably the Jags, honestly. So you might be surprised to see Ingram so low. I'm basically ranking him with injury upside plays, but I'm not excited to put Ingram in my lineup against Cleveland, for instance. And then we get Cordero, and it's just the reveal that Cordero's the backup. Now, what's the backup going to be worth? He was more productive than Mike Davis, who looked decent at the beginning of the game. And then Atlanta, Atlanta was like launching a boat, and then it gets a little bit wobbly, and then it sinks, basically. So it's not like you're excited to get pieces of this offense right now, but it's great to see finally Cordero Patterson. How long did it take, for the league to say, let's give him a shot as just a straight old running back?
Atlanta needs their spinnaker out.
Yeah,
I've been watching sailing videos, Bloom. But anyway,
take me away,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Let's all live offshore.
The canvas can do miracles. Just you wait and see. I love some yacht rock.
Who knew?
Yacht rock is my heart, man. Yacht rock was the music that was, I call it backseat music. Like you heard it when you were in the backseat of your parents' car when you were little. Like it takes you back to being little. And yacht rock, that's my jam, man. Steely Dan, of course, leading the way.
Of course, leading the way. As always, it is the Audible, and this episode brought to you by Footballguys.com, and it's our mobile app. I was messing around with the League Dominator last night on the mobile app. It's fantastic. Check us out in your app store, whether that's the iTunes store, if that's even still a thing, or Google Play. Guess who's got an Android? So check us out and check out that Football Guys League Dominator app so you can work mobily on the go, wherever you're at, in the office, taking a bathroom break, checking out your fantasy league, whatever. It's the League Dominator. It is our Football Guys mobile app. Check us out and search for Football Guys League Dominator in your app store. To the wide receiver position we go, and Dr. Jene Bramel joins us once again to talk about the injured wide receivers heading into week 2.
The wide receiver spot, a number of things to talk about. The primary injury, unfortunately, is Jerry Jeudy, who suffered a right ankle sprain. But the Broncos got some good news when it looks like x-rays did not show a fracture. An MRI on Sunday night or Monday morning did not show any additional injuries. It's being called a 4 to 6 week injury, which means we're probably looking closer to the 6 weekend. It looked like a fairly significant high ankle sprain. So it's good news that there's nothing so structural that he's going to require surgery, but I would plan on this being closer to the 6 weekend of the timetable instead of the 4 week. The Broncos have a Thursday night game in week 7 where they travel to Cleveland to face the Browns. That's probably the best case scenario, and you could easily see this bleed a little bit longer. Wide receivers tend to have a little bit of trouble recovering from high ankle sprains due to the demands of their position. Brandon Ayuk still dealing with a hamstring strain, being called day to day. He did play last week, but the Niners weren't willing to put him out for a full set of snaps. You'd expect him to be a little bit closer to recovery as long as practice participation goes well this week. He should be closer to a full workload in week 2. Odell Beckham was not able to go, and something of a surprise, continues to recover from his ACL. The Browns haven't fully cleared him for all practice participation yet, but looks like Kevin Stefanski thinks that sooner than later is going to be possible. But until we see Beckham back on the practice field full-time and not being listed as questionable, it's hard to see him play more than just a handful of snaps. Jamison Crowder should be off the COVID list this week. We'll wait to see how that goes. Keelan Cole, also of the Jets, Josh Reynolds, Tennessee, dealing with some minor injuries that could keep them out a little bit longer. Reynolds is closer to returning than Keelan Cole. Also of note, if you missed it last week, both Traquan Smith and Curtis Samuel dealing with aggravated soft tissue injuries. Traquan Smith has been trying to recover from a hamstring strain for the last weeks to months and was not able to do so during practice last week. He's on injured reserve. Same goes for Curtis Samuel, who wasn't able to do much with a groin strain last Wednesday in practice. Both of those injuries, obviously on injured reserve, is going to be a minimum of 3 weeks, but they could be a little bit longer as well.
There is Dr. Jene Bramel, and note to self, I got to tell Gene he can't say the coof on YouTube. Yeah, he said it. Look out. Demonetized. Bam. Take it away. All right. Well, take it away, Bloom, as we talk about wide receivers again. Upgrades, downgrades, waiver wire report is Sigmund's list, available at footballguys.com. And, well, up there at the top, he's not going to get Josie Jewell and Alexander Johnson every week.
Right.
And by the way, that touchdown was on Alexaner Johnson. It was not on Pat Surtain. If you say it was on Pat Surtain, you don't know football. So that's a touchy subject with me, Bloom. Anyway, 20 to 40%. You know what? It made Alexander Johnson fans mad at me, and even Alexander mad at me. But here's what I got for them. There you go. Nothing but love. Hey, Alexander,
always love.
Yeah, always love, Alexander. Go out and learn how to cover, because you can't. Sterling Shepard, 20 to 40%. Christian Kirk, 20 to 40% as well.
Yeah, the wide receiver, it doesn't have quite the oomph of an Elijah Mitchell. It's more like the Ravens running backs. These players can help you. But Sterling Shepard, he's just the guy that has the chemistry with Daniel Jones. And we'll see what happens with the Giants offense. But see, so you have to think, I wonder what's going to happen if we pass a threshold where it's just obvious that Daniel Jones is not the guy and he's a lame duck. Maybe it's even more Sterling Shepard. And we'll see what happens when Saquon Barkley is fully back, how it affects Shepard's workload in the passing game. But he looked good. He just looked like the kind of player that is going to flourish in a limited offense, basically. And then you have Christian Kirk, who looked tremendous. And we've gone back and forth on Kirk, right? A second-round pick, an inside-outside guy, a skilled player, a physically talented enough player, doesn't really have that physical advantage that he leverages, but just a good all-around wide receiver. Enter DeAndre Hopkins, dominates targets. Kirk had a very short period last year, about a 3-week period, where he was a wide receiver 1. And we look at him and you see how he's the clear number 2 receiver, even though they gave AJ Green a lot of snaps, even though they gave Rondale Moore some looks on a limited number of snaps, and Kyler Murray slinging it. Now, see, in the background, always in week 2 is how much of this was Tennessee's defense. And Russell Wilson, by the way, gets to pick on them this week, but you got to like it, right? Because we talked about it before the season. Kyler is a Michael Vick kind of force as far as tilting the field, an asymmetrical player on the field that is just demoralizing to face if you're a defense, and he's slinging it right now. He doesn't even really have a process yet, right? He's like a video game player.
Right. He runs around and he runs backwards 30 yards and then throws it, and it's a touchdown. Right. And here's the thing about Kyler, Bloom. Most people are like, oh, we figured that's what he's doing. Like, he has yet to show us what he fully can be.
Exactly.
So why not think that he can develop as a passer? That's pretty damn scary.
Yeah, it is. So you just want to get a hitch on this wagon. Now, maybe with Kirk, it's a short burn, bright like it was last year, but maybe he really sticks, or it makes it easier for him to stick because Kyler Murray's playing better. You're interested to see Arizona against Minnesota, but Minnesota didn't look great against Cincinnati.
Zimmer's given up. Didn't you put that in the chat room?
Yeah, right. So maybe
Zimmer's given up.
I mean, in hindsight, and I think that Kirk, and this is also a disclaimer for everybody out there, I hope you just enjoy hanging out with us, but we cast a wide net on the Waiver Wire show if you're new to the Waiver Wire show, because this is part of the Waiver Wire app we have. And yeah, if you've played in some public leagues, you know, there are definitely leagues out there where Kirk is available, where Shepard's available, and so on. So we got to make sure, you know, maybe even Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown would probably be roughly the same price if he went undrafted in your shallow bench league. But I just like this part of the segment, Cease, because we get to talk about Kyler Murray. I'm pretty excited.
I like this part of the show because we're going to talk about Nelson Aguilar at 7 to 15%. And there's the guy, our cover athlete of the week. Is that, there you go. There's Timmy Pats.
Yeah.
He's our guy. And to me, with Judy, it's going to be 6 weeks. It's 6 weeks. And then, we may not see Judy himself until December. So you've got a large window with Tim Patrick, who was very productive last year when Cortland Sutton was down. Obviously, Teddy trusts him. And Teddy's favorite receiver is the open guy. Now, it is Jerry Jeudy slightly, but the open guy, you use 9 different receivers. 9. Where some quarterbacks may struggle to count to 9. I won't get specific, Bloom. But either way, you see what Teddy's doing out there. It's great things. It means great things for one Timmy Patrick.
It does. And the bottom line here is, again, priorities. Sterling Shepard and PPR is going to help you. Christian Kirk, you're trying to catch that window like Cease talks about. Marquise Brown, similarly, Marquise Brown looks good. We'll see when Rashad Bateman is ready. And then one of your next priorities should be Patrick, who was already, as Chris was saying in the chat room, already maybe the best 4th receiver in the league. They kept him with an RFA tender, so they see the value of him. And he was pretty much a starter before the injury, right? He was an essential part of the pass offense before Judy went down. He was out there and making plays before that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So not your typical 4th Auden Tate, right? He's going to be involved in the offense anyway, but now it's going to be a pretty seamless transition for him. They get Jacksonville this week. They get the Jets next week. So Tim Patrick could absolutely be someone, especially if you're just so, you're pulling out your pockets like the Monopoly bankrupt millionaire, wide receiver. You could plug Tim Patrick in right away in some good matchups. Nelson Aguilar looked good, even though it was a tough matchup against the Miami cornerbacks. He gets the Jets this week, and Mac Jones looks ready for prime time. So Aguilar is someone that can be a number 1 receiver. Now we'll see if it tilts back a little bit, and the tight ends, which really that was the billing that the tight ends were going to be the centerpiece of the passing game. Maybe that tilts back this week. Maybe everything's going to work this week against the Jets. Aguilar could be part of that.
Super quick before we get back to the list, Robert on Periscope asks Brian Edwards.
Yeah. Brian Edwards, Cease, we were ready to shut him down like 3.5 quarters into that game, right?
Yeah.
So I was hesitant to put him in because
we'll save that section for Henry Ruggs. But anyway.
Yeah, even Ruggs. Look, it's Waller, folks. It's Waller in the running game, and then Carr threw the ball 56 times. So
I'll tell you who it's not, Zay Jones.
Hey, I'm just glad to see that Zay's doing okay after he had that bizarre incident. He's making plays, getting on the highlight reel.
Yeah, there you go. Let's get back to the waiver wire list. And the next section includes Jalen Reagor, 5 to 10%. That speed's always going to be a factor. Speaking of speed, there is KJ Hamler working his tail off to get open for Teddy. And Zach Pascal, 3 to 5% as well in this nice section of speedy playmakers.
Yeah, and I throw a unit at Edwards. Edwards over Ruggs, right? Hamler, and again, the clear message here is basically Patrick over Hamler. Okay, if you're going to pick up one Denver receiver, even though Hamler got open deep and dropped what would have had a long touchdown, and then we'd be talking about Hamler, right? All he has to do is catch an easy one for a 50-plus yard touchdown, whatever it would have been. And how could you possibly put Patrick ahead of that? So maybe this could flip. They're both worthy of looks with Teddy slinging it. In
Hamler's 0-0 on the roulette board.
Oh,
can't talk about gambling or whatever, but
right,
that's right. What he is, because when he hits, it's going to be big.
Yeah. So Zach Pascal, maybe a little different, like red or black, but he looked like the number 1 receiver. Now, what's that going to be worth with running backs and tight ends also playing a role in this pass offense? Carson Wentz, and the offense not exactly coming together, getting the Rams this week. So Pascal, maybe over the course of the year, he's going to have some steady value, more of a deep league pickup. Hamler's the more exciting one here, but I still think that Patrick is the guy you want of the 2 Broncos if you can only get one.
It's time to talk about the 1%ers, Bloom.
Yeah.
It's Dammy Amendola at 1%, KJ Osborne there as well. Anthony Schwartz, and we've had some questions about ODB in the chat room, but Anthony Schwartz there at 1%. Sammy Watkins at 1%, but you feel bad about doing it. You're like, Sammy, right. I guess. Cedric Wilson there as well. So, like, some very interesting situations. Usually we get to this point, and not that I ever check out, but usually it's a 1%er. You're like, man, whatever. But no, Bloom, this is a very interesting group of 1%ers.
Yeah, it's any of these guys could see their value grow a bit. Again, Brian Edwards will probably fit here. I'll go back and add him. Amendola, a slot receiver who works the short stuff is probably the Texans. Coming back to earth this week against Cleveland, continue to get value. Osborne, I don't. Cousins threw the ball like 49, Zimmer checking out, right? Cousins threw the ball a ton. Osborne did rack up some catches. I think he's a pretty ordinary number 3 receiver, but in deeper leagues, he still could churn onto your roster. Schwartz is interesting as that deep target. And I hate to even think it, Cease. If Beckham's just not right, then he gets those shot plays off of play action, which could be very interesting. And don't forget about Donovan Peoples-Jones. He could play last year. I'm not quite sure why he didn't get more opportunities. I know that Schwartz has that speed. Watkins, like you said, Cease, it's just a question of staying healthy. The ball tracking on that play was magnificent. You reminded that Watkins was a top 5 pick, and maybe was Buffalo got a little bit premature. They didn't really need to do that. They gave up a lot for him, but he's a good wide receiver that we probably won't remember as well as we should. And that play reminded me of that. Cedric Wilson, number 4 receivers. Gallup's going to be out for a while. Wilson's had a 100-yard game already when he's gotten an opportunity. It's Dallas. They're going to throw the ball a ton against the Chargers. That, by the way, is going to be a fun game to watch.
I'll always have a soft spot for Sammy Watkins, Bloom, because when Big E was going through his cancer surgery, my best friend, and he's a Bills fan, of course, I've said it multiple times, like it was before the draft, and he's like, I just want Sammy Watkins. And I was like, I think they're going to get Sammy Watkins. And then they did.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was good. And cancer-free, knock on wood, post-surgery and chemo. So let's go on. And Dr. Jene Bramel enters the room once again. Not a lot at tight end, but Gene's got your update. Here we go.
Evan Ingram still dealing with a left calf strain. Wasn't able to practice too much at the end of training camp. Didn't practice at all last week. The Giants have the Thursday night game in Washington this week. Ingram was already not practicing on Monday. Very doubtful that he'll play this week. Week 3 is the hopeful return for him.
Okay, there's you go. Dr. Jene Bramel, thank you very much. Jared Cook, thank you very much. If he's out there on your waiver wire, 5 to 10% for him and David Njoku. Remember him, 5 to 10%. And they kissed and made up. They patched it up. That's interesting. Tyler Conklin, 3 to 5% or so, a little bit lower, but let's talk about these 3.
Yeah, Cook ahead of Parham, and we haven't heard the last from Donald Parham. Okay,
no,
his time is coming, but Cook was more involved. Just getting a piece of Justin Herbert, starting the tight end who's the tight end for Justin Herbert is never a bad idea. So if you're not liking your options, then there's David Njoku. And again, I'll say, we heard that stuff in the offseason. Njoku wants to stay with the team. It seemed odd considering the way his career had gone with the Browns. And you saw him used more. You saw that athleticism, came into the league very young. And ahead of Austin Hooper, you should certainly be having Njoku on your roster instead of Austin Hooper, and maybe he will be somebody we can count on. And then Tyler Conklin, and it wasn't a situation, maybe it's they're onboarding Chris Herndon, but Conklin had, I think, over 50 snaps in the game. So he looks like the clear number 1. Made it through without hamstring issues, had some hamstring in the preseason. Maybe was a shadow over trusting him. So there may certainly be something there. And again, if Zimmer checks out, so we have to ponder if Zimmer's checking out, how it would affect Thielen, how it would affect Cousins, how it would affect Jefferson, but also someone like Conklin.
And that's a wrap for the tight end section, which, Bloom, leads us to our happy moment.
Yeah.
Now, I've had some surprises for you along the way. And, well, because of copyright things, the YouTube overlords wouldn't like it if I actually played the audio, but that doesn't mean we can't go without visual, because I've been visualizing this for months now, right? And I've told the story before, but you'd be driving around and that song will pop up and you get a tear in your eye. You're like, damn it, I can't really say it. I mean, I can say it. I can always say it, but I can't really say it. But now I can officially say it because it is our week 2 waiver wire report. And I want everyone, no matter what you're doing, and I want the stories. The stories are always so good.
Yeah.
I want the stories wherever you're at. You're listening to this. You're in the gym. You're on the treadmill. You're at home on your Peloton. You're in your office with your coworkers. You're dropping your kids off at school or whatever, wherever you are at. It is time for audience participation as you join in with both of us as we say, Cue the chutney! And I forgot to click this.
That's all right.
Hold it now. Bloom,
Hit
who
it.
are some of your week 2 shut 'em downs?
Yeah, and these are some tougher decisions, right? Everything is weightier in week 2. Matt Ryan, I'm not waiting around for that. Ryan Fitzpatrick, man, already hip dislocation. Zach Moss, Ronald Jones. Nah, I mean, you just see the loss of confidence. Justin Jackson, Joshua Kelly, probably not waiting around for them. Of course, Rashad Penny, J.D. McKissick, maybe in a different offense could play a larger role, but they're committed to Antonio Gibson, Giovanni Bernard. And it came true that both Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones did something to lose trust, but Bernard's role didn't really grow. Maybe it's him coming into the season with an ankle. Maybe we could regret that, dropping him quickly. We'll see what he does against Atlanta. Michael Carter, there was some excitement there. See, I don't think there's any excitement about the Jets' backfield at this point. Ty Johnson. So here's a different discussion, Cease. Here's a different discussion. A little tangent here. Should there be IR spots in... Can't say the Koof. What are we saying?
Koof, yeah.
Koof. Should there be IR spots in redraft?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So you get into a different calculus, right? Because you can put Michael Gallup on IR. Of course, you're going to stash Michael Gallup. Now, what if you can't? What if your league is still pre-Koof and you don't have IR spots? You did this, Cease. You unleashed that.
Yeah. It's ridiculous that we have to talk like children because of a word that YouTube doesn't like people saying.
Yeah. Well,
Hey, it's just authoritarian.
What would Prince say? Sign of the times.
I guess so.
The new Prince album that was released, like it's an old Prince album that was released, it's really good. Anyway, so Michael Gallup shut him down. It depends on the depth of your league. It depends on the depth of your bench. But I would be open to it. I'm not letting dropping Michael Gallup stop me from getting, say, Tim Patrick. I'm gonna see what Tim Patrick can do in the meantime, even though we really like what Gallup was doing. Donovan Peoples-Jones, you're still probably gonna drop Josh Palmer, probably gonna drop Jalen Guyton was ahead of him. But keep these guys in mind. Russell Gage, it's a tight end offense. I mean, this offense is not really going to come out of its shell, I don't think. Russell Gage was on the field a lot, didn't do much. Here's a tough one, Cease. Michael Pittman. How patient are you?
Well, I don't like Carson Wentz, so...
Yeah, and this week it's the Rams. I think he'll see some Jalen Ramsey. Again, would you rather have Pittman or Patrick right now? I don't know. I'd probably rather have Patrick. I like Paris Campbell, but I'm probably not holding on to him at this point. Tight end Anthony Ferkser, some of these, Blake Jarwin, it pains me, but I ignored it. I flew right in the face of it. Seaside, Blake Jarwin, so much more dynamic than Dalton Schultz. At 1%, by the way, with Pharaoh Brown. Good to see Pharaoh Brown doing some things. And not Juwan Johnson, people were asking about that. He was in there for like 12 snaps. So, maybe he'll continue to catch 2 touchdowns a game. Great to see what he's doing out there. Austin Hooper, again, you're letting him go behind Njoku. Mike Gesicki. And Cease, we know Gesicki's going to have like an 8 for 120 game. And maybe 2 of them. I have no idea when. I'm not going to wait around for it. I'm not going to try to time it. Will Fuller's coming back. So our Dolphins passing game, which wasn't exactly that great to begin with, is going to be even more diluted.
And we talk about like how Teddy has captured his team and how the guys love him.
Right.
What happens when the opposite happens?
Right.
And watch Indianapolis. Because Carson Wentz, you have that cachet in Philadelphia for a time where you can freeze guys out and you can be generally a tool bag to your teammates. Not that I'm talking about anything specifically. I'll tell you details afterwards. But anyway, you don't have that cachet with Indy. So, I love Pittman. Love him. Not as much in fantasy. But speaking of love, Bloom, and I'll get it right this time, even though I forgot the 1% tight ends.
I forgot them too.
That's because I'm looking down my nose at them. But anyway.
Right.
It's all about the love on this show. And there are some players, it's just week 2. It's so easy at this point to talk yourself into things, right? It's so easy. It's just, I just give it time and it'll be fine and it's okay. And just week 2 and nothing happened and it's fine. But that's when you just look at your lineup. You look at those players. You thought about clicking that button, but you didn't because you just want to hold on. So who are some of those week 2 hold-ons?
Yeah, this is tough too. And it's opportunity cost. So again, your hold on shut them down threshold often can come down to how many bench spots you have. If you only have 5 bench spots, you're more likely to shut them down. If you have 10 bench spots, you're talk yourself into holding on to some of these guys. And there's a lot of players that there's questions about. I'm probably going to hold on to Ryan Tannehill. Hopefully this offense brings back more play action, looks more like the Arthur Smith offense. And, Seattle doesn't necessarily, it's not an imposing defense. So even though they made Carson Wentz look not that great. So I'm probably holding on to Ryan Tannehill. Trey Sermon, maybe he should be the headliner. Don't drop Trey Sermon. Don't. Even in 5 bench spots leagues, don't drop him. Don't drop James Robinson. Again, even in those short bench leagues. Cecil, you said 6 weeks for Judy?
Yes.
6 weeks. I mean, 6 weeks is a long time, but man, what would Judy have had in that opener if he played the whole game, Cecil? 8, 9 catches?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, he's Teddy's guy.
Yep.
It's everything Cecil Lammey was telling you in the preseason, that if Teddy wins the job, it's good for Judy. I'm trying to find a way to hold on to Judy if you don't have that IR spot. Trying to find a way. All right. Tyler Boyd, don't do anything rash. Elijah Morgan, chat room. Thank you, chat room, by the way. This is great. David Johnson is a shut him down. That's a good one from FQD, by the way. So Elijah Moore, the snaps were there. Zach Wilson was just under fire for a lot of the game. And yes, it's Corey Davis, but I'm going to err on the side of giving. So on the Tim Patrick line, maybe I might give Elijah Moore one more chance here against New England. It's close. Same Marquez Callaway. I want to give another chance also because Jameis Winston's looking good, throwing the ball well. Only threw the ball 20 times. Callaway was out there a lot. So I'm trying to hold on to these guys. A little more ambiguous when we're talking about the Tim Patrick line there. Again, guys like Terrace Marshall, Rondale Moore. The thing is, when you take these kinds of guys late in your draft, young receivers, then you can't just bail after one game unless there's a usage thing. Because see, says Brandon Ayuk shut him down. Oh. I can't just bail on Brandon Ayuk after one game, right? You can't do that.
Did Brandon Ayuk get the message that was sent to him? And I'm not going to get into specifics, but a message was sent to Brandon Ayuk. You got to be a professional.
Yeah.
Just because you're in the NFL doesn't mean you're a pro. Like, you have to be a professional. So if Ayuk listened to that message like Jimmy Garoppolo did, then guess what? He'll be back. And when he's back, he'll be good.
Yeah. So with Ayuk, it's a little more of a specific defined situation because you nailed it, Cease. Is he going to get the message or not? So, but there's still a range of outcomes where he gets the message. Okay, he's part of this prolific offense. But you have these young wide receivers that you take late in your fantasy drafts. If you bail on them after 1 week, then you're being too quick. Now, granted, if it's for somebody like a Shepard or a Kirk or a Marquise Brown, I get it. You know you're going to get what you hope you would get from these young guys in terms of consistency and production. But otherwise, you want to see, as long as the snaps opportunity are there, then you want to at least give them a few weeks as we ramp up. Remember, not much of a preseason. So I'm going to say err on the side of holding these young guys, Terrace Marshall, Rondale Moore, Lammey Brown, maybe not as close, although he was that clear number 2.
Yeah.
So just know the snaps are there. And I think this is great, Cease, because we're in it, man. I'll wind it up and say we're in it, where this is what we wanted to do whenever fantasy football hatched out of someone's head, whenever it did 40, 50, 60 years ago. I can be a GM. I can make these decisions. I can maybe even do it better than the GMs. And now we have to make these decisions. And it's fun to think it through, walk it through. And we know our audience is a discriminating audience. Some of you might say, tell me what to do because I don't have time. And by the way, I hear people, every offseason sees a few people say, I can't play fantasy football anymore. I'm sorry. Like, they apologize to me. I'm sorry. I'm like, whoa. Congratulations. You found something better to do with your time than fantasy football. You put it well, Cecil. He's like, we don't have a life and you
do. We don't have a life, you do. So.
Yeah. So it's good, though, that this is our non-life life getting together. Bob Harris on the couch later. It's in it. We're in the water now. We're swimming. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
That's what we do right here on this show. It's what we do with footballguys.com. You love the show, you want to support the show, then check out footballguys.com. Go there, and how many tens of thousands of pages of content will we have this season? Oh my goodness. Enough for you to get all of your fantasy football needs in one place. More than just our cheat sheets and our injury news and everything that goes on. You have to check out footballguys.com. It's the best way to support this show. We certainly appreciate everyone out there for jumping on board. And if you want to just dip your toe, you go to footballguys.com, you click that orange button that says join now. Let's say, I want to see what you guys are about. Then you go check out our free daily newsletter. All of the top news from the day to your inbox every single morning, hot and fresh, with commentary from me, from Sigmund, from Joe Bryant. As I like to say, hell of a trio. Or as Joe would say, heck of a trio, buddy. So there you go. I cuss a lot. I'm from the country. It's a second language. Anyway, do all those YouTube things, like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid. We are back, and we appreciate you. Thank you very much for watching here on our YouTube channel. We've got a ton of great shows. Of course, like Sig said, On the Couch. We've got IDP Roundtable coming up. Of course, our preview shows. We have our mailbag shows, been very popular. Our Dynasty show coming up later tonight. Dynasty newsletter, which is already out. We've got our shorts, our YouTube shorts that are coming up as well. Lots of great stuff going on here on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/footballguystv. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We are the Audible. Everyone, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.